time aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr is fresh off a trip to Biloxi. I am back on my desk for a whopping 75 hours from touchdown to when I take off again. And I'm sure Mr. Kerr is not far behind. We're going to hear, definitely going to hear about Biloxi. Can't wait to dig into that, including one of the factoids I learned from Mr. Kerr yesterday about direct flights from Biloxi to other fun places. Mr. Kerr, how the heck are you?
I wouldn't say fresh off Biloxi here. It was we went down with a group of rival dads and some of the other friends and had a really good group. One of the rival dads here is from Illinois, and he moved down because of his job a few years ago. Got to be good buddies, but his aunt is the president of a casino in Biloxi, and she hosts him. He is one of 8 siblings, so a lot of the brothers, some of the brothers, so they all bring friends. So once a year they go down, the aunt puts them up at the casino, took really good care of us, and got my first taste of Biloxi during March Madness, man. We had some reservations at sports books, got to go hop around the different casinos of Biloxi, check it out. I've never been there before. But it was some really, long days, I'll say, as it went long into the night. And then with 2 of us, me and my buddy, even, managed to get in 3 hours of pickleball yesterday with his aunt at an indoor pickleball facility there in Biloxi, which was, good to cleanse the system there. But it was a struggle for the first 45 minutes there on the court with both of us not really moving around quite a bit but I did make sure to stretch the heck out of myself before we started playing.
Stretching is high on the list. Well, a little quick headline on what we're going to cover if we get to it all from a timing standpoint, and then I want to dig in a little bit more on Biloxi. Got some United updates on my favorite route, Dallas to Vegas. I want to update folks on where I've been with American Airlines. We got some stuff about increased service to Hawaii, United retiring some planes. We got some information on friend of the show, Thrifty Traveler, and then we've got a new credit card offer and a Slack question.
In-person credit card offer that is intriguing once again.
In branch. Yo, but Biloxi, housekeeping. Text us 571-293-6659. You can also leave us a voicemail there. You can email us, ed@pizzainmotion.com. We would love it if you would subscribe to the show on both YouTube and whatever audio podcast platform you're listening. That is a super big help to us. Social media, he is at Kerr Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza Motion, and the show is Miles to Go Podcast. All right, so Biloxi, I haven't been there in a million years, but as I recall, there's, at least a half a dozen casinos, and some of the names that there's if I remember correctly, there's a Hard Rock, there's a Nugget, there's a Harrah's. So what'd you think?
Yeah, flew down, had a quick business trip to D.C. for the day to see our friends at Marriott and Hilton, and then woke up very early the next morning and caught a connecting itinerary through Atlanta, which I put on my Instagram stories, but I haven't connected in Atlanta because I lived there for obvious reasons in probably 8 or 9 years. I connected twice in the last week through Atlanta. Once from Tucson to my dad's birthday in Charleston, and then again D.C. down to Gulfport. There are no flights from Gulfport anywhere outside of the Southeast region, so you can find, with the 3 major carriers, that is. As I found yesterday sitting in the airport. So you can fly American to Dallas or Charlotte, you can fly United to Houston, or you can fly Delta to Atlanta. Besides that, at the check-in yesterday,
I think there's Charlotte service. I think there's Charlotte.
In Charlotte, yeah. Charlotte and Dallas was American. But at check-in yesterday, I saw some of the other desks that I wasn't expecting to see that I think I was just too tired and it was too early in the morning when I got there. But there's Breeze, so I looked it up, and you can fly what I am calling the Degenerate Express nonstop from Gulfport to Vegas. So if you really got to get your gambling in, you can do that. It looks like they do twice a week. And then you can fly Sun Country to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina from Gulfport, which is a little beach hop express. And then you can fly Allegiant to St. Peter Clearwater, right across the Gulf of Mexico, or now the Gulf of America, depending on where you lean on that one. And, pretty interesting little thing. It's an old Army air base. They got some cool history there, some signs outside, still a big National Guard base and an Army helicopter aviation depot. So I'm just in real nerddom. As soon as you land there and you start looking around, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that stood out, man, is there's no major road from Biloxi to the airport. You're literally just driving through neighborhoods, and then all of a sudden there's the airport. It's kind of interesting spot. So just a good place to go and check out. Super chill, man. I will tell you, first of all, you see a lot of your fellow Americans down there. That is great and interesting people watching in Biloxi compared to like a Vegas crowd or
Yep.
something like that. Super like much more intimate and less corporate feeling than Vegas for sure. Casinos are spread out pretty decent. It's not like you can walk, there's no strip or anything like that. Most of the casinos on the beachfront, but spread out by several miles, probably 7 to 15 minute Uber Lyft drive between casinos. And then on the what they call the back bay side, on where the river comes up behind the ocean there, a few casinos. I'll say we hopped around quite a bit. We did, there's the DraftKings sport book at the Golden Nugget we did for March Madness the first day. Second day, we went to the FanDuel sports book at the Palace, which is a huge place that's not on the beach but on the backside. We also checked out Harris for a second. We went in. The Palace was another place that we went to. And then Treasure Bay is where we stayed, and that's where his aunt is the president. And Treasure Bay is a much more local feeling spot that just kind of has everything you need. I can't say it's going to be a repeat destination for me unless it's like a dad's trip like this, or unless, we kind of had to hook up there with my buddy's aunt taking care of us really well. Can't say enough about everything she did for us. But it's not like, there's not like nightclubs. There's not awesome hot restaurants. There's not like, it's like a place where like people are driving in from all over the Southeast, man, that I would call it, because it's not very many flights. And they're just hardcore gambling, man. Like they are, they got their reserve spots, reserve machines, a lot of first name basis with the kind of host around. And then again, just the transportation thing. It's like you just got to take the Ubers and Lyfts everywhere. However, they are incredibly affordable compared to anywhere else in the country I've been, man. Like we were taking $6 lifts between casinos, like 10-15 minute rides. It's like literally for $6. It was just a good time to hang out and really just, for a few days decompress and have no worries. But I think the thing that really caught me off guard still the most was 20 years later, man, now Katrina is still prevalent and talked about, and the effects of Katrina there in Biloxi are on full display. My buddies, again, the Treasure Bay used to be on a barge in the ocean where all the casinos had to be on barges.
Yeah.
Now it's rebuilt entirely on land. There's only a couple left that are on barges because the entire casinos were taken out. When you're driving between the casinos 10 to 15 minutes, there are massive swaths of open land that look like, they used to be individual plots and houses. And we just asked the Lyft drivers, hey, did this used to all be houses? And they're like, yep, Katrina took these entire neighborhoods out, and it's just empty land now driving between casinos. Pretty much everything down there was wiped out, and you can just still see where like there used to be a pretty thriving community or houses or neighborhoods or building, and all the buildings and houses you see now are new up on stilts. You can tell recent rebuilds. And just in local conversation with the dealers or the bosses or the sports book staff, like it would just come up where they'd be like, yeah, post Katrina. I'm like, dude, we're 20 years past that now, man. And it is still very much a part of everything that they talk about and that you see. So I've always thought about going to Biloxi. It's not a far drive from here, but again, just because I was coming in from DC, all the rival dads, my buddies drove down. It's about 5 hours from where we live here in Georgia. Just not a luxurious, fancy place to go by any means, but certainly if you want to go have a good time with a group of buddies, we go check it out. And then there's all kinds of festivals and things that people talk about. They call it Cruising the Coast, is the world's or the United States' second largest car show thing after Sturgis. They talk about there's a bike cruise to the beach on the bike week. There's a big crawfish festival. They actually have two things I didn't know were in Biloxi. One, a minor league baseball team, the Biloxi Shuckers, are down there in a pretty awesome stadium, like across the street from the beach, which is really cool. And the second's a pretty sizable Coliseum convention center. And they have like the thing they were advertising this week is the Monster Truck Jam is coming like next week. So like decent enough size that they got some concerts and things. So I can see like, it would be a pretty cool thing if they got a good show coming into town and they have major artists come through to that Coliseum and you want to, have a gambling trip, enjoy the casinos and go see a concert, be a solid weekend trip. Just don't expect the finer things in the world to be down there in Biloxi.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it being a 5-hour drive for you. That's probably a bit too far for what I'd be comfortable with for a drive. And it's, look at the map, it's only about an hour from New Orleans, which is about what I would expect it to be. I think interesting. I was there a long time ago. I just looked on the Fly GPT website, Gulfport Biloxi Airport, International Airport. Interesting enough, while I don't see it on future days, it looks like there is a Sun Country flight to McAllen, a Sun Country flight coming from McAllen, Texas, and then a departure to Corpus Christi, Texas. Some of that could be charter stuff for gamblers who are in for the weekend, but I don't know who's arriving on a Sunday night. We're recording on Sunday night. We're arriving on a Sunday night from Corpus Christi, from McAllen. I guess maybe they could be the charter coming back, and then that plane's going to wherever you said Sun Country normally serves, but that was a weird one.
The last thing I'll say about my travel there is Delta serves it with 3 flights a day from Atlanta, all 3 on the 717. I haven't flown the 717 in a few years. Purposely avoid that because
AirTran planes, right?
Yep, unique in the Delta fleet for a couple reasons. One is there's no in-flight entertainment, which is fine, whatever. Just it's again a very short flight for this one. It was an hour there and 55 minutes back. Seats are noticeably smaller than the main line, even in like Delta Comfort felt more like regular seats. And then 3 is they do not have the new Wi-Fi that Delta has that's free. You still got to pay for Wi-Fi on the 717 with Delta, or if you're T-Mobile, you can get your free in-flight internet. So just a different system, but not a nice plane, man. Just my least favorite there, the Delta fleet. Very old. They break a lot. You can just catch maintenance delays. And in fact, my flight was delayed about an hour yesterday because it had gotten behind earlier in the day with, just from what I could discern to be because no weather or anything around, but it looks like it got stuck at Chicago Midway for a little bit with a maintenance delay. So we got about an hour behind. I just don't like flying that thing, man. I think they are due to finally go away as continued A220 deliveries are in the route, as well as I think some more 737s coming. I think I just look up on the Delta fleet, but I hope those things go away sooner rather than later.
Well, the A220, a great replacement for that, because one of the upsides, one of the few upsides of the 717 is one of the few mainline planes flying. It's a 2-3 config where you've got aisle window on that left-hand side of the plane, like the old Mad Dog MD-80s that I flew on American for a million years.
Which is where I sat both times there on that 2 side.
Yeah, very nice.
You like it?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about planes and all that stuff. But the 717s, yeah, definitely an interesting plane. I was one of those ones that never minded the Mad Dogs, and so never really minded the 717s. The American used to fly the Mad Dogs on some pretty significant stage lengths. Dulles to Dallas, so almost 3 hours worth of flying. An hour on a 717, that wouldn't bother me too much. But I take your point. They're old.
Yeah, and again, it's just the maintenance delays about those and the old 757s is what you just have to be cognizant of with Delta now. And I'm telling you, man, my last since flying Delta already quite a bit this year, I think I'm right at 10,000 NQMs already. With as much traveling as I've done, even though you and I both say we're gonna do less travel in the next year. Like this year's been unbelievable so far. And like I talked about it back in the episodes in January, I saw it coming and I knew, and it's here, man. And just like you, I'm home for about 72 hours when to catch Thomas's baseball game. Then I just have to be in New York for the majority of this week after that. Delta is by far the best in-flight entertainment or in-flight experience. I was thinking like IFE there, in-flight entertainment and in-flight experience. The crew is just noticeably better than the other airlines. They are just happy to be there for the most part. And I'm sure you catch a bad one every now and again, but service just cannot compare. Quality of the planes that you're flying cannot compare up front or in the back with the in-flight entertainment and free Wi-Fi. But man, the on-time performance for Delta this year, just not what it used to be. Like I have not caught these many delays as I am catching on Delta quite a bit this year. And even just the little hour things that just, like it was getting late last night and I would have loved to have been home at 8:00.
Yeah.
Right before the kids are getting tired and funky and just ready for bed rather than 9:00, man. It's just, it's interesting to see. Like the reliability is just not there. And I wonder, why that could be. Is it these planes are getting old and just catching these maintenance delays as we go on year and year? Did they change something about the ops? Is it the air traffic control that's just a mess? Like I would love to know, but I used to never even contemplate Delta flights being late and having to keep up like I did with the other airlines, but I just have to do that now. And it's just like a touch bit, and it's like annoying enough to be like, I have to be aware of it now rather than just assume that these Delta flights are going to be on time. And again, would love to see the stats when they come out month by month for on-time performance to see what Delta's doing, if I'm just getting unlucky or if this is, something going on with their system.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had that many delays on United. I'd say that's probably one of the few things about their operation that, that has been a positive for me. I've had a couple, but for the most part, they've been on time. Sort of recapping where I am on travel, I've been splitting travel between American and United. I got to tell you, it's... So the timing I had a trip to Phoenix last week, and the timing of the United nonstop wasn't great for calls that I had for the day. So I actually made the choice to take the connecting American option, which, something I've told you and listeners and viewers that I wouldn't do. The timing just worked out that way. And, having had, I'd say still, even when the Wi-Fi works on United, it doesn't work great. Like it's spotty and all that. I had perfectly clear Wi-Fi again on 3 American flights last week, and I was just able to work from effectively gate to gate, Dulles to Dallas, Dallas to Phoenix, all on the way to a meeting, which made me super productive. By the time I got to the meeting, I was able to just, fold the laptop up and focus on the meeting. So that was a big difference.
But you did have to pay for that Wi-Fi, right?
I did, yeah, and it's not cheap.
Yeah.
If you're gonna fly American at all, you just got to go right for the monthly subscription because 2 flights is going to cover what a monthly subscription is. Yeah, I want to be intellectually honest. I had my first American Airlines issue. I surprised it took as long as it did, but I probably had 10, 12 flights on American since starting to split up some of my business. Got to Dallas Fort Worth this week. For whatever reason, the flight that I had booked, I guess maybe because of price, and I didn't notice it. It had skipped over one of the connecting options. So it didn't have the most efficient connection from Dallas to Phoenix. It had the second flight. And so I landed, it was showing about a half-hour delay on my second flight, and that was going to put me like right at the tail end of one of the meetings I was trying to get there for. So I'm like, all right, well, I landed plenty early. Let me go see if I can get on the standby list for the earlier flight. So went over to the gate. I was there, call it probably just over an hour before flight departure, and went up to the gate, and there were 2 gate agents working it. The one gate agent just first refused to put me on the flight. By the way, it was a paid first class ticket. First gate agent refused to put me on the flight, said that there were plenty of standby passengers and the flight was full. So I pushed a little bit more, and it was clear the other one was.
That's not an option.
Right. Pushed a little bit more, very polite about it. And like, well, we can put you on, but you're going to be fairly far down the list. And the other woman says, like, make sure what I thought I heard her say was like, make sure you mark him down as late. And it's like, well, like that's weird. Like I'm over an hour ahead of time, plus I'm a paid first class passenger. So, the list pops up, and I'm now second on the standby list. They start clearing people from the standby list. They clear the first person on the list. Then they clear the third and the fourth and the fifth, and I'm like,
this is something American is notorious for, and I don't know why.
And I'm like, okay, all right. And then I'm like, all right, like maybe, because it still showed in the app that there were first class seats to sell. Maybe they just, because it's one consolidated list, maybe they're just waiting because they're going to clear me into first. Okay. But like for like a 2-hour flight, I don't really care. It's more just, what's the process procedure. So they finally clear me into coach. So I go up to the gate, and I'm like, hey, and then after they clear me into coach, then they went, and you could see on the screens, watching on the app, all that. After they cleared me into coach, they cleared everybody into first, and they didn't clear me. So I go up in front, and now the supervisor, who was clearly in a bad mood, she's like, I'm like, hey, like, I'm just curious about first class. She's like, well, it was already full before you were cleared onto the flight. And I'm like, and so she stops talking, and I go, it didn't seem that way, and I was a paid first class passenger. And she just interrupts me and goes, are you going to let me finish talking? And it's like, okay, I know how this is going to go now.
Yep.
So I just got real quiet and let her finish, and she got done ringing, and she goes, because you were late and because you were a standby passenger. And I just said, okay, like I understand, but I was a paid first class passenger, and here's the here's the timestamp on when I got my boarding pass. And she goes, well, you have a nice day, and just puts her head down, and like conversation done. And it's like, all right, well, I kind of sort of expected some of that. I talk with a couple of folks that fly American a lot. Gary View from the wing, and it does sound like they handled it wrong. As a paid first class passenger, I should have been cleared onto the flight in first. Like, moral of the story is I've had 10 or 11 flights on American. I've had my one bad experience. It's sort of like, if you play video poker enough, you're supposed to hit your royal flush. If you fly American enough, you're supposed to have, but I gotta be honest, man, all the other experiences I'm having on the plane, the crews are really friendly. I've been, status has been recognized multiple times in the back cabin. Hey, can we get you something up front? Wi-Fi works. And it was funny because I got on the flight from Phoenix to Las Vegas with 2 people who fly. I think they both fly Delta, because they're from Atlanta. And they both got on the flight because they don't ever fly American, but the timing worked for us leaving the meeting. And one of the 2 guys is like, is this a new plane? And it was that probably would have been a 321. I'm trying to think what they have in their fleet. So it had a mid-cabin door, like row 10 or 11, so I'm almost positive it would have been a 321. I'm trying to think what else they would have. They don't have any 757s left, so it had to be a 321. So, and those aren't particularly new.
Some of them are very old because they're U.S. Airways 321s.
Yeah. I don't think it was an old U.S. Airways one because of the bins, but he's like, that plane was so clean. It's much cleaner than the Delta planes I fly on. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think I've been specifically on a dirty Delta plane, but I just thought it was interesting that they were like, wow, like that was a really good flight.
Which, by the way, I miss them cleaning the planes during COVID so much, man. yesterday on the 717, after we take off, I pulled the tray table down to put my phone there and watch
Oh
the
yeah,
episode
tray
I
tables.
downloaded, just full of Biscoff cookie crumbs, just crumbs everywhere. And I'm like, I miss when they would like take these things down between every flights and actually clean the planes. Man, it's
Tray tables are disgusting by and large, almost all the time. Yeah. So so long and short of it is like I feel like right now American is hitting it on a bunch of key metrics more so than United is for me. I'm still, again, it's going to be rare that I go completely out of my way and connect. It's going to have to be something where I don't have a meeting or something like that, and I can afford to, like, I have an evening flight today, and so I did pick American again because the times on United weren't great, and it's like, all right, well, I'll take the high degree of confidence I can work. But that's my high level on American versus United right now.
That's skipping people on the upgrade list. So as everybody's listened to podcasts for a while, I was executive platinum commuting between Atlanta and New York on American for 3 years about. And I saw the skipping on the upgrade list thing as an American flyer all the time. And United, that maybe happens a few times on United, even though I'm better than I seem to recall, maybe rarely, never happens on Delta. Like, it's just like there's not a random thing skipped, man. But when I was lived in DC and as an American flyer, DCA, the upgrade skip list thing happened all the time. It would be like they would call somebody for the upgrade, and if you weren't in the gate area, they would skip you and find the next person rather than just upgrade you. So I remember leaving lounges early when I was like number 1 or 2 on the upgrade list to make sure that I didn't get skipped and stuff like that. And I wonder what in the world, that is.
I wonder if so I got served up an upgrade offer in the app for the first time ever, and it was a fairly affordable upgrade offer. I wonder if some of it, because like most of my flights on United, rarely do they clear a seat into first because they're selling them all, and they're selling them all at a reasonable enough price that people are buying them. So maybe part of why we're seeing it with American is that they're just not as efficient at selling the upgrades at a price that customers are willing to buy, and there's more opportunity for seats to be available, because I just don't see a lot of it on United where there's even a seat available for them to skip someone.
Now I say that, and we haven't talked about my Delta upgrade into 31F last week.
Yeah, like you still haven't told how what the heck that.
It was that flight was so late. I was on the 10:30 departure to Dulles. Which, why does Delta have an Atlanta to Dulles 10:30 p.m. departure? I can't believe that flight exists.
I guess,
and as expected, it was half empty.
Yeah, probably because they need it for the morning.
Yeah, well,
because Dulles to Atlanta to feed one of their banks. Yeah,
coming back, that was the flight I took. Actually, back was a 6 a.m. departure from Dulles back to Atlanta. Which, oh man, 3:45 wake up in the Hyatt Regency Dulles. Oh, that's rough. I don't want to do that again.
No.
But we did that. Yeah. So this was a weird one, and I think somebody just got the hookup because it was a half empty, super late flight. So I was walking to the gate from the Sky Club.
Yeah.
Because at 9 o'clock at night, turns out there's no line for the Sky Club finally I think it was a Tuesday night at 9 p.m. So got in there and actually got some work done for an hour prepping for the meetings the next day up in DC. Got the notification as I was walking to the gate. Hey, you're, whatever that Delta thing says, welcome aboard or move on up, I think is what they say. And I pull up the app and it says cleared first 31F. And I was like, what? Like that, what does that mean? And 2 other people were cleared, and they had their, 2B, 3C or whatever on the upgrade list. And again, this flight is super empty. I was going to have my own row in the back. It's an hour and some change up to Dulles. I was literally just put my head on the side and stretch out and fall asleep. I could care less. So I got up, and like they were already like, again, half empty flight. They were like, nobody else was boarding 30 minutes before departure time. And I walked up and I was like, hey, I was like, I got some weird thing. It was like I was upgrading the 31F, and the gate agent just obviously didn't want any part of this conversation. And
they were done working for the day.
And I think, some non-rev or somebody had just gotten that up, but I had never seen that before. I posted on Instagram. A lot of people were like, how in the world is that possible? And I think it was just a little bit of a gate agent on a half empty flight. Maybe because I wasn't at the gate when everybody else was done boarding, I'd gotten booted back to 31F. I was so tired at that point, and again, had the whole row to myself that, sometimes even better than a first class seat with somebody right next to you. So I didn't push it. I could care less for that flight with my own row, but I was like, this is the first time, as I say, there's no shenanigans with Delta that, I caught a little bit of shenanigans there, but I have that screenshot saved, and that's going to be one of my favorites to bring up from time to time of the first class upgrade to 31F on there.
I love it. All right. A couple little tidbits on United. Hopefully we can zoom through all the rest of the stuff here. First off, I've been flying that route, I don't know, 20, 30 times a year, Dulles to Vegas for 8 years, 9 years. and they are finally adding a wide body. In May, they're finally going to be flying the 777 from Dulles to Vegas. I assume it's going to be those old fly backwards 777s with a bunch of first class seats. But the moral of the story is lots more first class seats coming to one of my favorite routes. Interesting that they're moving it to Vegas. I think, when you couple that with another tidbit that I heard on Airlines Confidential, Maya Lieben was guest co-host with Scott McCartney this past week. United is retiring. Scott Kirby announced they were going to retire 21 planes in 2025. He did not announce which planes, but said that would save them about $100 million because they wouldn't be refurbishing the engines. So call that $5 million a plane. Interestingly enough, that they're willing to sit 21 planes because they don't want to spend $5 million to get X number of years out of those planes after they do a full, tear down of the engines. And I think these are like the little tiny signals that business travel is starting to soften. And then, not to really get to the political side of things, but as the Trump presidency is working on getting rid of some number of government employees, I wouldn't be surprised to see government travel down. So you take gov travel and business travel down just a bit, and I think we're in for an interesting year.
Yeah, whereas Delta was much more straightforward with lowering their guidance because of softening demand. And at the time of recording this weekend right now, dropping at least 1% of their domestic schedule this summer with some schedule changes. So if you do have Delta flights, go and check and make sure you look at the schedule changes for later this year. Yeah, I think I heard the same thing in that interview, and I was like, oh, this is, instead of United saying demand softening, it's saying we can have 21 less planes worth of demand. Because when you put out a number like $100 million savings, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a huge number. But not for United Airlines, right? $5 million in revenue per plane is something that plane can generate for them, doing, however many legs a day over a relatively short amount of time. So you're thinking like, wow, you don't really need those planes when all you've been complaining about is not getting the planes from Boeing. And now you're willing to take this, out of, service. It's just a clever way in my mind of saying that demand is softening. I cannot remember who it was. I think is it Glenn Holstein, who's the COO for Delta, who is known for giving pretty candid interviews that folks like talking to. You guys are gonna have to go back, but it's something like government travel is down 50% right now, and that is a huge amount of business for these airlines and getting the government employees that fly around. I mean, think about it. Every single time you're in the airport, you see just the service members flying commercial to get between bases or to their next duty station, right? And then you don't see all the plainclothes civilian government workers who are traveling all the time for work, and that is a large chunk, man. So I think to say, in addition to what we've seen with the ups and downs of the stock market in just the last couple of weeks, which is why I do not look at my retirement account except for once a month, or else it would go crazy. It is going to be very interesting. Yeah. Selfish side of me says, does that mean the airplanes and airports are just not going to be as crazy this summer? That would be great. Certainly wasn't the case when I landed in Atlanta yesterday and spring break had started. Spring break had sprung, where you just saw the millions of families with, getting ready to go on all their trips, especially out of Atlanta, because it's just such a short hop to all the Southeast beach destinations where a lot of these folks go. It was certainly bumping last night at ATL, but that would be the silver lining for us who would know that we're just going to be on the road. If it just wasn't as crazy this summer, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, my gut says that airports will definitely be less crowded. I don't know that airplanes will, because
now there's less planes flying.
Exactly. You got delays on Boeing deliveries, and then you have the airlines like United retiring planes. I looked up real quick while you were talking. A319, I think, is when I look through the family of planes that they could potentially be retiring. There's some 737-800s that are older Continental planes that might be, but those seem more workhorse-ish to me. So if they were retiring 319s, it's 114 seats. The 737 8s and 9s are in the 150 to 160 range. So there's a decent number of seats if you're pulling 21 planes out, and you figure if they can fly 3, 4, 5, 6 segments a day at shorter segment length, and you're talking thousands of people if they're pulling out of capacity. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. And I think everything I've heard about, to your point, same earnings reports you've heard about, travel softening, all that stuff. Interesting as well, these increases that United is doing Delta is doing for Hawaii service. And I mean, Hawaii, I think Hawaii has almost unlimited demand, but not at premium price points. And so, there's an article that we'll link to in the show notes, but increased service from Salt Lake to Kona. They're also increasing frequencies between Salt Lake and Maui, and they're expanding the summer schedule out of Minneapolis and Atlanta. So lots of extra capacity going to Hawaii. That gives them a high confidence that they can fill those seats because the capacity is there. But I think when I see things like this, I obviously want to see what Southwest does and a couple of the airlines. But this sort of feels like to me that you're going to be able to find, like, I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, call it like before COVID, it was pretty regular to see like there was a Hawaii fare sale almost every week. And it's possible with the way that they're shifting capacity around that we could start to see those same rock bottom fares to Hawaii that we used to see pre-COVID.
I just sent you a link there in your iMessage if you want to click and open that. As you know, I tend to use my several years of knowledge of fares between Atlanta and New York as a barometer for what's going on in the larger demand market, man. But have a look at that, dude. It is still United first class for $204 between Atlanta and Newark on most days. Like that is $204 for domestic first class.
And Delta almost double.
Right.
In most cases. In some cases over double. But I mean, there's, lots and lots of flights here where Delta is $375 to $475.
And this is not like the 6 a.m. flight, man, right? The first two results are 10 a.m. and 11 a.m., $204 first class to New York City. So, again, my question stands, am I a moron for sitting in the back of the Delta bus instead of flying first class for $200? But then, of course, you get into the spring and summer season with Newark, which traditionally does not work out very well. It's just really interesting to see United go after the Atlanta market like that with those fares. That's pretty unbelievable.
And unless I'm counting wrong, there's almost 30 nonstops a day from Atlanta to the New York City airports.
That's why that's 5 entries into the choir here, so I have to do it because
massive amount of Delta flights.
And they just can still price it like that, man. And unless you're getting a late night to Newark, there's not going to be any empty seats. And then the standbys at the last minute always take up. So like you're not getting extra space up there to New York City. It's really an unbelievable market, the amount of capacity going between these two cities.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. All right, quick service announcement for folks here, public service announcement. For folks who have been fans of the show for a while, you've heard us talk a lot about Thrifty Traveler. Thankful to them for sponsoring the show in the past. They did pass along to us that effective Tuesday, April 1st, so 4 or 5 days after this episode drops, they're going to be raising the price of their Premium Plus bundle from $124.99 to $149.99. So the Premium Plus bundle is the bundle that includes their hotel deal add-on product. And then they'll also be locking people in at the hotel alert price of $24.99 if you're adding on to an existing subscription. The interesting thing that Thrifty has done in the past and they're doing here, which I really love seeing companies do, I mean, this comes at a real cost to them. If you sign up for Thrifty Traveler before April 1st, you lock in that price forever. They won't raise your price. Now, hopefully this won't be like United Airlines where they say, you have lifetime status and here are your lifetime benefits, and then they take those things away later. But Thrifty has been pretty good over the years of not raising prices on people who'd signed up in the past. And so PSA, if you're thinking about being a part of Thrifty Traveler, now may be the time to grab that subscription before prices go up. I am locked in at a much lower tier, and I don't think I'm giving it up anytime soon.
I gotta love a notice before negative changes are potentially made and then locking people in to that price for lifetime. So not only are they giving you notice to make that decision, but you can lock that price in forever and ever. So a good call there. I think we should talk about a little sweet in-branch offer coming everybody's way.
This is something I'm almost certain that Mrs. Pizza is going to end up getting. Chase Sapphire Preferred is going to be rolling back out their 100,000 Ultimate Rewards point offer in branch, and that means you have to go into a local bank branch. But Chase has many branches across the country. Chase Sapphire Preferred, one of those really good starter cards if you're just looking to get into points and miles. And I mean, 100,000 Ultimate Rewards points is nothing to sneeze at, Mr. Kerr. What do you think about this offer?
Looks like Dr. Credit's got a little update here. I've been able to confirm the in-branch offer is coming on March 23rd, which is the day that we are recording, which is interesting because it's a Sunday and the branch is not open, but maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing.
Most importantly, a Reddit report indicates it'll become available to Chase affiliates on April 3rd for online applications. We do not know if that will apply to referral links or not, so you'll have to wait just a few more days if you want to see if that rumor is true, but Doc is pretty good about not posting stuff unless it comes true. So remember the rules for this, right? The old Chase 524 here years later is still in advance, so make sure that you are below that, including the weird banks that report business lines to personal credit reports. Might catch you, the same with authorized users. There's also, I think, the 4-year rule between sign-up bonuses for Sapphire products. And then there's the other things like people who have like a Sapphire now that they've had for more than 4 years and they product change it to a Freedom and then they wait a few days. Apparently you can go back and get that sign up bonus again. As long as, again, I think it's been the 48-month rule. So
Right.
a lot of good resources out there to make sure that you're following all these chase things. I will be trying to pick this up for either Mrs. Kerr or myself because there is no such thing as too many chase ultimate rewards. Pretty sure that we're both below 524 as we've just taken a bit of a break from card applications. I think we've picked up only a couple cards in the last few years, but I have too many chase cards open right now, personal. I don't know if there's a hard limit, man, but I've had I keep the ISG card every year because it's $49 for a free night. I've had the Quest card with United as I was flying United the last couple of years. Still have an old school Freedom card, so I got to take a look at probably going to drop the United card. Hope that opens up a slot. Unfreeze the credit, which I hope all of you listening have your credit frozen all the time because of fraudsters these days, and your information is inevitably leaked or stolen from one of the many, many things that we all use that has it. So unfreeze that credit report, drop an application. I'm sure it'll go to pending. We'll play the game and then hopefully become 100,000 ultimate rewards points better. I'm trying to look minimum spend. So you remember off the top of your head, it looks like, here it is, $5,000 in 3 months. So a little bit higher than the 4,000 I think it was for years and years. But now $5,000 to spend, Chase, once you put on that card.
Yeah, and I think same. I think I'm actually at 524, so this will probably just be for Mrs. Pizza. She does have the Chase Freedom card, and we haven't moved those points off from the double points for a year promo yet, so this will make it easier for us to move those around. I can always link her account to mine, but this way she'll have both cards on her own. And to your point, I probably need to get around to downgrading my Chase Sapphire Preferred at some point so I can be eligible for this in the future. But yeah, I'll definitely be adding this to my wallet. I am curious what your thoughts are on United's announcement that they're going to be getting rid of the free clear benefit for 1K members. And I've talked about my lifetime status, how many 1Ks there are with massive numbers. Do you think that thinning out the 1Ks out of the free clear option is going to get it anywhere near tolerable to start using clear again?
I will tell you my anecdote for this, which is only a few days old. Wednesday morning, Dulles Airport, about 4:15 a.m. flying out there.
That's just ugly. I'm sorry. It just hurts my soul to hear you say that.
I sent you and Mr. Rappaport a text that said, my boarding starts before the Capital One Lounge at Dulles opens. So that's a really early morning. But it was hilarious, dude. There was maybe 3 people in line for pre-check all the way up to the machines at 4:15 a.m. at Dulles. And then there were about 15 people waiting on the clear kiosks. And I was like, what
are you waiting? Yeah.
What are you waiting for? Dude, people... I struggle with humanity, man, on a base level when I see people standing in lines for this and just not using their rational behavior and letting the group thing go down the train. It's like, what are you guys doing? That's always the experience in Atlanta as well, man. There'll be 2 rows deep of clear and you can just walk through the pre-check. I don't get it. I don't understand what clear does. You have to show your ID with clear as well. After you do the kiosk, you got to walk up to a TSA agent and ask for your... What is the point? What are we doing? What is this product? Maybe a couple times a year, Clear will save me a few minutes in Orlando if you catch it wrong. But even then, nobody in Orlando has pre-check in my experience, and that line is always very manageable compared to the regular one. I don't care. I can't even tell you if I have Clear right now or not from either, Delta status or United status hanging over right now. I don't get the point of it. It makes no sense that as your product scales, it gets worse. There's too many rules. What's the point, man? It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I would say I don't see a lot of... I don't use Clear very often. You don't have to show your ID every time because I used it in LAX recently and they didn't require my ID once I got to the front. So I do think there are some instances where you don't have to show it. But have you run into the touch-free pre-check yet?
Yeah, digital ID. I've been using it for probably 6 months now. It's a great line in Atlanta and then at a few other airports.
Yeah, I run into it. They don't do it at Dulles yet, or at least I haven't seen it at Dulles yet. They just expanded it to Vegas. Chicago has it. But that's super quick. So maybe if the TSA keeps pushing on that technology, we won't need Clear. But
that's great at LaGuardia. Actually, is where the touch free is. Nobody really knows what it is. They don't know to get in that line. And
that's the key. Yeah.
The pre-check line can get a little deep at LaGuardia. Still, you're talking another 10 minutes. But if you just go to the touch free, it's no wait ever. And again, the whole thing about security now is those horrible, horrible new X-ray machines that slow it down so much. Yeah, Not yet at LaGuardia, and then there's a couple lines at the airports. Like in Newark, I know which line to get in, so that you still get the old school where you just push it through, and it's amazing how much faster it is. Like whoever did that procurement process and execution for the government, get out of here. Like it is awful, including the entire New Atlanta pre-check choke point. I don't call it a checkpoint. I call it a choke point. That makes absolutely no sense, man. And every single time I go through there, every trip, every week, I go right to that kiosk that says, "How was your TSA experience today?" Hit the frowny face and in the comments put, "These new X-ray machines are horrible," every single time. And I will keep doing that to be the most fruitless use of my energy ever. But I will continue to let them know that this is atrocious and ridiculous.
But tell me how you really feel.
I mean, like, it just drives me insane, and I have to do it every week. That my home airport takes me 30 minutes in what everywhere else in the United States, besides maybe Denver, takes me 5. It drives me nuts.
Well, let's try and leave this story on a little bit of a happy note and say that the tip here is if you're eligible for touch-free ID, it'll pop up in whatever airline app you're checking in at. Absolutely go for this, because those lines, like you said, people don't really understand them yet, and so they're always shorter than the regular lines right now, and you don't hear me say always or never very often. All right, last thing before we run away, a quick Slack question from Dr. Phil. He wants to know, what do folks do for foreign currency? He says, "I'd like to have $200 with me in local currency in case of emergency. Always just ordered small amounts through Bank of America, but their fees and exchange rates are really poor." Mr. Kerr, what do you do for foreign currency when you're traveling abroad, if you travel abroad?
I always get it at the local ATM, not at the airport or the train station, but wait until whatever country you're in, check into the hotel, ask the concierge, "Hey, where's the closest ATM?" and pull it out there. Mainly USAA has fee-free ATM surcharges worldwide that they reimburse you for every month. And then typically the exchange rate that the network gives you is way better than any money exchanger or bank is going to do. And that's what I've done every time for over a decade and will continue to do. Of course, there's always the risk of somebody skimming the ATM card and that kind of stuff, but that's why you're smart about it. And I typically don't do it again at major public or tourist destinations, but typically find like a local bank, like in the city that we're in, that has an ATM vestibule, and have, doing it that way, have never run into any problems. So that's the strategy that I will always do.
Yeah, I'm an ATM guy too. I also keep a box. I can't quite reach the box, but I got some currency with laying on top of it people can see visually. So I keep
yen right there.
Japanese yen. So I do keep a currency box when I come back from places. Like I remember a strategy that I learned from someone many years ago, where you take whatever currency you have left over and use it to pay down your hotel bill on the last day of your stay. But the reality is, I don't really spend a ton at hotels when I'm traveling nowadays. If you think about it, breakfast at the hotel, generally speaking, paid for the types of places that you and I stay. I do some laundry here or there, rarely on, those sorts of trips. So there's usually not a hotel bill I'm paying with points. So I found myself bringing more currency back, and I just have a little like index card box, and I just have it, like labeled A to Z, and I put the local currency back in there and use it next time I go back. But same as you, I used to get currency. Citibank had a program called World Wallet where they would actually ship you currency for free, and you could just check the rate, before you shipped, obviously, and the rates were usually pretty reasonable. So that was what I used to do. But their rates aren't horrible, but now they charge you to ship the currency, and so it's really hard to overcome a $15 shipping cost on a small amount of currency. So I'm hitting the ATMs as well. But I do tend to hold currency if I don't spend it all in the country and just use it next time.
Now, if you're going to be getting off the beaten path a little bit, a few things to remember. There are certain countries where American ATM cards will not work. And then there are other places where ATMs are not readily available if you're really getting off the beaten path. And in that case, you just need to plan ahead a little bit more and either do the currency exchange places at the airports and just eat the fees, contact your bank ahead of time to see if they can ship you something. Yeah. Or just read the latest Reddit threads to see what's going on. But like if you land in Russia and try and use your ATM card, same with North Korea, probably not a good shot it's going to work. So always think ahead.
I would also not recommend landing in Russia or North Korea anytime soon. I understand Mr. Kerr is like, just follow the rules and everything will be okay. I'm going to be the don't fly to Russia or North Korea right now guy. So we'll just... There's an
interesting Instagrammer, the German travel guy, young kid, probably 24, 25, that is close to visiting all 197 countries. A couple weeks ago, he was in the first tourist group back to North Korea that was allowed post-COVID. He definitely was not following the rules, could not believe everything he was posting. First of all, was so curious how in the world he was getting service in North Korea. And then after his tour group and his content got picked up kind of mainstream, North Korea is no longer doing tourist groups right now. So
Love it.
Yeah, and really interesting, but I think it's the German travel guy or kid. You can just Google it real quick. I'm just fascinated by places in the world, man. It continues to just intrigue me that there are places on this planet that is an infinitesimally small piece of this universe that we as humans cannot go, or as Americans, I should say. And I don't like that. I wish we could just freely travel wherever we wanted without fear or anxiety, but maybe for a future generation.
Maybe, but for right now, I think you and I are going to travel with a slight bit of fear or trepidation to Las Vegas and New York repeatedly.
I think anxiety is the word there that you're looking for.
Anxiety. Yep. Yep. Well, by the time this episode drops, I think Mr. Kerr and I will be well worn out in our respective second home cities.
Yes, this is very much the case.
Well, safe travels this week, Mr. Kerr. Got to getting close to our Japan trip and trying to figure out all my summer travel stuff. So hope to have some updates on that in future weeks. So we upload again. We've got miles to go.
I wouldn't say fresh off Biloxi here. It was
That does not. That does not sound like a good video.